This should be the final time we talk about a coaching hire for a while. At least I hope. The Pistons were the last to fire and the last to hire now. And they've gone with their third fired coach in a row. They've gone with now former Caps coach J.B. Bickerstaff as their next hire. Now, Antoine, I know you liked this hire, as you had mentioned previously in our group chat.
Yeah.
I'll just kind of let you run wild with this. What are your thoughts on it?
I just think for them, JB had to leave the Cleveland team because I feel like just there's a lot of dysfunction going on with him and Mitchell and just even Cleveland's front office itself. I think he's proven he led that team to, I think, 99 wins over 2 seasons, and then, of course, 2 playoff trips in the past year, beating Orlando this year, and then I think they got eliminated first round last year, right?
Yeah, they lost to you guys.
Yeah. Yes, you're right.
See, he's a fake Knicks fan.
I don't have memory like Tyler's about playoff series. That's something I don't have.
That's your only playoff series win.
Yeah. No,
this year.
No, I'm saying at the time it was their only playoff series win. So.
I think they needed somebody that's has experience, veteran guy to come in. I feel like if you're getting an assistant coach that's coming in with also a lot of young guys, it may not gel as well. I think having a veteran that can help develop the young guys, like JB is, and also as a winning head coach, not a losing head coach, step in and just help mold the guys that are already there. Cade, Asor, Jalen Duren. Obviously now Tobias Harris is another veteran that's stepping into the locker room there. Ron Holland's going to be a new draft pick. I think he's going to set a culture for them coming in to not have less than 10 wins. I think that's definitely a starting point. But I think also Borrego drew his name out of the consideration in that job as well. So they were kind of left with, I don't know who else would have, who they interviewed besides Borrego. Obviously Bickerstaff as well. But I think he'll be doing just fine. Okay. I think they're going to give him time. They're not going to fire him after a season again. I think this is Langdon's pick, and he's going to stick with them for as long as he can until he needs to make that choice probably to move on. But they're not going to be paying 2 coaches after a year of being there. He'll be there for 3 years, I think, max, and we'll see where they go from there.
Okay, so based on his history, Anthony, why would you make the jump to the conclusion that JB is good for younger players or player development?
Well, look at Evan Mobley in Cleveland.
Okay.
Look at his development. I guess you can also argue Darius Garland was fantastic, had an All-Star appearance 2 years ago. Also did fall off, though, tremendously. So I don't know if that's a Darius Garland thing. I don't know if that's a chemistry thing with Donovan Mitchell. Look at Mobley.
Right.
Jared Allen also came there. You could look at Isaac Okoro, and as another guy that stepped up pretty big towards the end of his tenure there in Cleveland.
Yeah.
But I think he's solely responsible for Evan Mobley's development.
Okay.
He helped him grow a lot this season. He should be the starting center next year if Jared Allen's not there.
Mm-hmm.
We all talked about that before. But, I think he's going to, mold them into a better team, obviously. It can't get worse than what they were last year.
Well, it could.
It definitely could.
It could get, yes, it could get really bad.
It could.
But I don't think that's going to happen.
But if it does, that will be...
he'll be gone.
That'll be shocking.
It would.
It does,
absolutely.
It has to get better. He'll jump in there and just he already has experience. He has had coaching experience too.
Yeah.
I think that's another thing that probably Langdon loved is just having someone with coaching experience to help these guys. If you're having an assistant come in, it's kind of you're starting from ground zero. A guy's got to learn coaching duties and compete with guys that have been coaches already for several years on their respective teams.
Yeah.
You have a guy that already has 2 years of experience under a successful Cleveland team that made it to the playoffs 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
Maybe didn't be successful in getting as far as winning or Eastern Conference Finals for them.
Yeah.
But he led them to 2 respectable good seasons for what they have.
He's solid.
And he's a solid pick.
You know what I view this?
I don't think you went wrong.
Yeah.
With that hiring.
You know what I view this hiring as? I view it as Mark Jackson before Steve Kerr for the Warriors.
Yeah.
You know how the Warriors were, they were figuring things out. Then they draft Curry, Clay, Draymond, all these guys come at one time. And then they have Mark Jackson, and he kind of gets them right on, he gets them on the ball to start off, and then they're like, you know what, we want that next step up. And they get Steve Kerr, and then they go on a rocket, and they just never look back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I see the JB Bickerstaff hiring just like that. I think the Pistons are on their way to just shoot up. Just give them like 3 years. Give them 3 years, and that next coach that comes in, they're gonna go off.
The thing, if this was the opposite way, if JB went to Charlotte, there's really nothing to build there in Charlotte right now.
Right.
Besides Brandon Miller, and LaMelo's injury history is not that great.
Yeah.
You have more pieces that are healthy in Detroit to move on from there. With Charlotte, you just have LaMelo, Brandon Miller, Mark Williams is getting better, but it's not a lot there. So I can see why an assistant coach went there, because they could build something over time with those young guys coming in.
Yeah.
I think JB has with Tobias there, you have veterans now as well.
Yeah.
Joining that young core.
Yeah.
That have experience. Brandon Miller has 1 season under his belt. He's going into his sophomore season. LaMelo does have more than 2 years, but you're wondering if he's going to be healthy at all to play more than 50 games.
That's a whole other question about LaMelo. Maybe another podcast we could talk about him.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Because he's interesting. He's an interesting character.
Very polarizing.
Yes. But I wanted to say, I view the hiring also as very safe. It's a very safe hiring. It's not risky at all.
Yeah.
You know, it's like JB. He's not going to win you a championship, but he'll get the job done good enough. I feel like. So we'll see. I don't think I will be shocked if they come out and have either an equal season to what they had last year or worse. I'll be very shocked. So I expect them to improve. Nothing crazy, but take steps in the right direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not the biggest fan of this hire personally.
Okay.
I think they should have gone the assistant coach route and get like a Sam Cassell or a David Adelman. I don't know. Based on the way things off the court went in Cleveland, him taking control of just everything. I understand the coach is supposed to do that, but kind of like there's a line between, taking control and just like, being a control freak, kind of like violating at that point. I don't know if the Pistons are necessarily a situation for that kind of coach.
Why you say that?
I think you've seen everything they've been through. It was just a clown show in their front office. Obviously now they've kind of changed. I think you needed a newer, like a more fiery head coach that's going to build up with your players.
Go ahead, continue.
Yeah, because I think the Warriors, like this new CBA, it's not like it was before. Like dynasties are never going to happen, most likely. And you kind of it's going to be hard to just transition to coaches and win with that. You've seen with the past few champions, their coaches have been developing with the teams and with the players. And I think, I don't know. There's just something about this hire I'm not thrilled with, because Cleveland was just fine. They weren't anything threatening. They weren't a threat in the playoffs. I think if the Magic were experienced, I think they beat them easily. So for me, it's tough, and especially with this Pistons team that's kind of in two different mindsets of wanting to develop the young guys, but also trying to compete at some form. The Ron Holland pick doesn't make the most sense because the spacing's going to suck for Cade now.
Yeah.
So, and Cade himself can't stay healthy either. So it's tough. And obviously now they're trapped because they're already paying one guy who isn't even employed anymore the biggest contract the coach has ever made. Yeah. And look, if this doesn't work out, he signed to a 5-year deal. You're going to have to stick with him for now.
We talked about it last episode. This was a Kenny A job, who's now in Cleveland.
This was the perfect job for Kenny.
If JB was still in Cleveland, he probably would have taken this job, I feel like, because Cleveland wouldn't have an opening. But it's unfortunate that Kenny A did go to Cleveland. I don't know why. I don't know why Cleveland stepped away from Borrego. They interviewed him a lot. If Borrego went there, I think this would have been Kenny A's job 100%.
Maybe Borrego's just waiting for another opportunity to come about.
Yeah.
There's definitely going to be coaches on the hot seat this year. So we'll just have to kind of see what happens essentially with that. Because I don't know, man. I think it'll be a fine hire, but I'm not the biggest fan. I think there's better fits for Bickerstaff elsewhere if he had waited. So,
so Tyler, let me ask you really quick.
Yeah.
Why do you think that the Pistons hired JB, or because I know we're kind of in the dark on why they did, but what would you say is the reason why?
I'm also gonna throw out another interesting thing. JB got hired for another job before Darvin Ham did.
Well, Darvin Ham went back on the Bucks assistant coaching staff in the hopes that they fired Doc Rivers so he can take over. That's why he took the job.
Good point.
So, because he was going to get the job originally, if we had beaten the Bucks in the second round in 2021, Budenholzer was gone, and Darvin Ham would have been promoted as head coach. So he's just kind of unfinished business for him.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question one more time?
Why would you say, or what would be the reason? Let's say you were part of the Pistons organization. What would be a reason that you would want to hire JB?
If I wanted to hire him,
or why is the reason that you did, like, what is the reason you did hire JB?
I think, look, you tried to compete last year, that went well. So you kind of got to overstep to try and make up for last year. And I think getting a coach that coached in the playoffs is going to help them get there. But I think this is too focused on the short term when the Pistons need to be focused on the long term. And I think JB could easily put them in a hole where they're in trouble. And
I think so.
Yeah.
I view it more as a stepping stone. Because, like, if you look too far in ahead,
right,
you're going to miss what's right in front of you.
That's also
you know what I mean?
putting you up for a risky hire after the fact.
Right.
Just like we did. Because we had Kenny Atkinson, was doing a fine job, not fit to win a championship with us, but we decided to hire Steve Nash. Like if JB builds them up to, a formidable playoff team, they can't whiff on their next coach, because that's what's important. Because if you whiff on your next coach, you've lost Cade, and you've lost the whole team at that point. So that's kind of my frame of reference. I think there's better jobs fit for JB Bickerstaff, but you hire who you hire.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's the decision they made. They're going to live with it. I think they'll be happy with it. I just hope it pans out for JB's case.